At the time of this recording, I'm 24 years old, but if I could go back to my 14-year-old self and give some advice on how to make progress faster, here's what I'd say. 1. Every footballer knows the feeling of going up against that player with 99 pace. You can't get past them, you're second to every ball, and you have a terrible game. It's easy to blame your genetics at the end of this game. He's lucky he's so fast, I'm unlucky I'm so slow. And it's true, maybe you have a lower genetic set point and a lower genetic ceiling, but this doesn't mean you can't make a load of progress with your speed. Speed wins games. Make it a priority in your training. 2. You can probably guess what my 14-year-old self did when I first stepped in the gym. I walked my ass straight over to the bench press, put a tiny plate on both sides, and like a baby giraffe trying to walk for the first time, I grinded out a few terrible reps. This set the scene for my first few years in the gym. All I wanted was that 100-kilo bench press. And to this day, I don't think any lift has made me happier than when I achieved that goal. But then I realized two things. First, that there's no prize in football for how much you can bench. And secondly, no one cares how much you bench. How sad. 3. Take a look at any professional sprinter and most professional footballers. Notice something? They all have low levels of body fat and high amounts of muscle. Why? Because fat don't fly. So take care of your nutrition off the pitch. 4. Getting into the gym is hard. It's intimidating, you feel lost, and quite frankly, you have no idea what to do. But once you get over this hurdle and get into a routine, you will start seeing progress. And when you do, you'll be addicted. 5. Like most footballers, I've had a number of injuries over the years, but thankfully, only a couple of them have been muscle injuries. And I attribute this low number in part due to my work in the gym. But one regret I do have is getting the same muscle injury twice, because the first time should be a warning that you have a weakness. So if you injure a muscle, don't just rehab it to its original point. Make sure you make it way stronger so that you don't injure the same muscle twice. 6. Like most teenagers in the gym, I simply wanted to be strong. And what better way to show this than the one where you lift as much weight as possible, the deadlift. But time and time again, it caused me back pain. Yet I kept doing it, and my performance on the pitch suffered as a result. Now, if an exercise causes me pain, I'll find an alternative with the same training outcome. After all, there's no prize for what you lift in the gym, only how you perform on the pitch. 7. Most of these lessons are dumb mistakes I made, but when I look back at this one, I realize how smart it was, even though I didn't know it at the time, because I loved training. So after my game ended on a Saturday, I'd have dinner and then head straight down to the gym to do a workout. Some people may think, well, you were overtraining, but this workout had a number of benefits. First, it kept my high days high, meaning I could use Sunday as a complete rest day. But secondly, it stopped me going out, which wouldn't have benefited my performance and probably would have caused more fatigue and worsened my recovery than doing this extra gym session. Don't be scared to lift after games. 8. I used to spend hours in the gym. You've got nothing better to do as a teenager. A leg day literally took me 2 hours. But as much as I enjoyed my time in the gym, these workouts weren't effective. And as life got busier, they weren't possible. But if you opt for big compound movements like back squats and power cleans, sometimes even a 20-minute session is enough to make progress. Your workouts don't have to be long to be effective. 9. One of the most frustrating things as a footballer is being too tired to train. I always wanted to do more football sessions, more gym workouts, and more progress to ultimately get that pro contract I so desperately wanted. And thinking that more was always better, I applied this logic to my recovery. So I did recovery runs and recovery workouts until I had a realization. All I was doing was adding more and more stress to my body. What I should have focused on was eating healthy, sleeping more, and learning to relax, because you recover more by doing less. I still haven't learned how to relax. 10. I was convinced there was a secret I didn't know. Surely there was an exercise that would suddenly make me stronger, or a drill to suddenly get fast. So I kept looking, trying new exercises every week, finding more and more crazy exercises on Instagram. But it wasn't until I'd been training for a few years that I recognized where all my progress came from. It came from doing basic exercises for a long time. So stick to the basics if you want real progress. progress. 11. Sticking to the basics is great, but if you did the same 5 sets of 5 back squat with the same weight on the bar every workout, maybe you would see progress for a while, but that would quickly come to an end. Because to continue making progress, you need to slowly increase difficulty. That could be adding a small amount of weight, increasing range of motion, changing the tempo, or adding reps and sets. But whatever option you choose, you must progressively overload your lifts to see progress. 12. I was lost when I started training and quickly realized I needed help. So I started looking for a program and found bodybuilding.com. Not ideal as a footballer, but here I was able to find a program. And although I can't remember the name of the program, I do remember whose program it was. It was Chris Geffins. The guy was jacked. Yet 2 weeks into his program, I hadn't seen any progress. So I decided that his program was useless and didn't work. I found my next program. The problem was, 2 weeks later, I still had seen no progress on this new program. Wow, I was getting so unlucky with these programs. And while I can laugh about it now, jumping programs wasted so much of my time because there's no perfect program and it will take at least a month of commitment before you see any real results. But while there is no perfect program, my Ultimate Footballer program is as close as it gets for footballers. And you can get a 14-day free trial when you hit the link in the description below. This will make sure you apply lesson 12. Follow a program. 13. My football journey hasn't been easy. It's been anything but. My lowest point was at 16. I didn't get my scholar contract, but I didn't give up. I did everything I possibly could to get another opportunity. Yet 1, 2, 3, 4 trials went by, and I heard the same answer again and again. No. I got disheartened, and honestly, I lost a little love for the game. And I was loving my training so much in the gym that I thought maybe I'll become a bodybuilder instead. Thankfully, I didn't go down that road. And while I never got the pro contract that I so desperately wanted, I did get a D1 scholarship in America, which has completely changed my life. And yes, my training in the gym helped me get here. But ultimately, I got that scholarship because of my skill on the pitch. So while you continue to work on the physical side of your game, don't neglect the technical side. Football must be the priority. 14. The halo effect. Person A is good at this, so they must be good at that. This is a common bias that causes so many young footballers to follow terrible workout plans. Unfortunately, strength and conditioning in football is a long way behind where it should be. So when young footballers see Ramos doing a workout online or a Barcelona team workout, they immediately assume it must be great. But the truth is that training on sand, with Bosu balls, or with rubber bands, is not what made Ramos a pro. Ramos is pro because of his incredible technical ability. So you should learn as much from him as possible about defending, but unless you know exactly why someone is doing the exercise they're doing, don't copy what the pros do on social media. 15. Exercise order has a huge effect on your progress because certain outputs require specific inputs. For example, to get fast, you must move fast. To get strong, you must lift heavy. And to build muscle, you need loads of volume. But these all demand different inputs. So save your higher volume work for the end of your workouts and start with your fastest movements first, as these require the most mental focus and application. 16. A big advantage you have as a footballer is you're extremely fit. This means it's unlikely your cardio will hold you back in the gym when lifting. Make the most of this by pairing opposite muscle groups. For example, an upper body push with an upper body pull. This makes your workouts more efficient, helping you make more progress in less time. Use supersets in your workouts, especially for your upper body. 17. I'm embarrassed to tell you that it took me years to add plyos to my workouts, but even longer to use the most effective ones, because most footballers just use box jumps in the gym, which, despite not being a true plyo, do have their place. However, their big problem is they only train the concentric phase of the plyo, whereas the real value of plyos is in the landing and redirecting force. I love using depth jumps in the gym for this, but the real value is when you use repeated efforts. So use locomotive plyos in your training. 18. You train hard with challenging exercises, lifting heavy, and getting close to failure. Yet when it comes to your core, you choose easy exercises and do hundreds of reps. And still you wonder why you never get abs. Train your core like any other muscle group. group, with challenging exercises that you can't do for hundreds of reps. 19. Stop training like a bodybuilder is one of the most common phrases in the football performance world, yet so many footballers misunderstand its meaning because there's no such thing as a bodybuilder exercise. Any exercise individually can be great for footballers. Instead, stop training like a bodybuilder refers to what you're not doing. You're not sprinting, using plyos, or lifting heavy. This should make up the majority of your training. Then add some hypertrophy and injury reduction movements. You don't need functional movements. Functional movements aren't as functional as you think. 20. As a teenager, all I wanted to do was build muscle, and I used to obsess over the small details. Should I do 8, 10, or 12 reps? What about 5? Or maybe 20. Yet the reality is, as long as you're getting close to, and sometimes to failure, between 5 to 30 reps, and doing 10 or more sets per muscle group per week, while eating high protein meals, you will build muscle. Your rep range for hypertrophy is much less important than you think. 21. At this point, there isn't a workout split I haven't tried. I've done it all. Bro splits, push-pull legs, and even full body every day. And I've come to realize something. What you do in these workouts is much more important than the workout split. As long as your workout split facilitates your sprints, plyometrics, strength training, isometrics, and mobility work, the exact split really doesn't matter. But this is the one that I use in the Ultimate Footballer program. 22. I've been training for 10 years now. 4 years of hypertrophy, 2 years of Olympic lifting, and now coming up on 4 years of actually training like an athlete. Despite all this, I'm no heavier now than I was at 18, but my body composition is significantly better. I have more muscle, and I have less fat. But still, after 10 years, I don't have too much muscle. And if I wanted to lose weight, I still have some fat to lose. Even most natural bodybuilders will never gain too much muscle in their lifetime. Fat is the much bigger problem for most footballers. So don't be scared to gain too much muscle. 23. I was scared to go on holiday. I'd been working hard in the gym all year, and I'd seen great progress. But now, during my 1-week holiday, I was going to lose it all. A year of hard work gone in a flash. But guess what? After that week's holiday, I was no weaker and no slower. Don't worry about losing all your progress in a week. 24. There is something you should worry about though, and that's losing your progress over a season. Because when your season's coming to its end, and you're fighting for playoffs, league titles, and cup finals, that's when you want to be at your best, your strongest, your fittest, your fastest. Unfortunately, this is the opposite for most footballers. At this point, they're clinging on for dear life, nursing injuries, and praying for the season to come to an end so they can finally recover. Why? They focus too much on recovery in season and not enough on continued progress. Although not to the same volume, you need to lift in season so that you're at your best when it matters most. 25. I started lifting less weight a couple of years into the gym. And no, it wasn't because I'd got weaker. It was because my range of motion sucked, especially when squatting. I was barely hitting parallel, and I had no control over the weight, because all I'd focused on those first 2 years was lifting as much weight as possible. So more and more weight went onto the bar, and my squat lost more and more depth. It wasn't until I finally dropped my ego, stripped some weight off the bar, and started squatting to depth that I saw this progress transfer to the pitch. Don't sacrifice your form in the gym. 26. After a few months in the gym, I saw something on social media. Something I thought was going to transform my training. It was this. You need to change exercises often to shock your muscles. Unfortunately for me, that's exactly what I didn't need to hear. Because now, instead of progressively overloading my main lifts, I was swapping them out for new exercises as soon as I went 1 week without adding weight. And now, instead of making real progress, my only progress was neuromuscular, as I had to learn new movement patterns every week, change exercises less to make more progress. 27. My original list of mistakes for this video was 86 bullet points. Now for you, I got it down to 27. But it's clear that in a short space of time, I've made an insane number of mistakes. And every day I think to myself, where would I be if I'd learned those mistakes from someone else? Sure, there are some mistakes you simply have to learn firsthand, but others I could have learned from someone else and saved years of time, pain, and frustration, which is why footballers in my programs make so much progress than those who are not, because they're not only following a program, they have a mentor in myself to guide and coach them, not only through their training, but also along their footballing journey. I don't care if it's me, but get yourself a mentor, or at the very least, hit subscribe so I can continue helping you on your journey.